Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The twisted web of deception, lust and vengeance continues to unravel in the young and the restless universe as Mitch Bacall, known to some as the presumed dead Matt Clark, becomes the prime suspect in Noah Newman's mysterious canyon crash. Could Mitch, hiding behind his new identity, have sought revenge against his wife Sienna Bacall for cheating with Noah? Or was his motive something far darker? A deeply personal vendetta against the Newman family that's been festering for decades? The moment Nick Newman learned that his son Noah had Sienna Bacall's number saved in his phone, something about it didn't sit right. Why would Noah, recently back from London and trying to rebuild his life, be in contact with a married woman like Sienna? The revelation immediately raised Nick's suspicions, especially since Sienna's husband, Mitch, had recently been revealed to have eerie similarities to Matt Clark, a man once presumed long dead, and one of Nick's most dangerous enemies. The affair that sparked a storm. In Los Angeles, whispers began to circulate about Noah and Sienna's late-night meetings. Though Sienna tried to dismiss them as harmless business discussions, her nervous glances and tense reactions told another story. It started innocently enough, late nights at the Shadow Room, drinks after closing, and conversations that stretched into the early hours. But emotional boundaries blurred, and before long, the chemistry between Noah and Sienna ignited into something reckless. Noah had been lonely, scarred from his breakup with Allie, and feeling detached from the Newman family's constant power struggles. Sienna, on the other hand, felt neglected by her husband. Mitch's cold demeanor, his mysterious business dealings, and his vanishing acts had left her desperate for attention. Noah became that outlet, young, idealistic, and completely unaware that he was stepping into a trap that could destroy him. Though Sienna told herself it was just a flirtation, she couldn't deny how deeply Noah's kindness affected her. For once she felt seen, appreciated, loved even. But as she became more entangled, paranoia set in. Mitch, she realized, always seemed to know more than he should. There were moments when his dark eyes lingered on her just a little too long, his smile too controlled, his words too deliberate. It was as if he knew, and was waiting for the perfect moment to make her pay. The canyon crash. On the night of the crash, Noah had been driving along the coastal canyon road, reportedly after leaving the Shadow Room. According to investigators, there were no brake marks, suggesting either brake failure or deliberate interference. Noah's car went over the guardrail and plunged into the ravine below. When paramedics arrived, he was barely alive. The police found no evidence of intoxication, but what they did find was far more chilling. A call to Sienna placed minutes before the crash. That call went unanswered. When Sienna received the news of the accident, she was visibly shaken, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with terror. But the fear wasn't just for Noah's safety. Deep down, she suspected the unthinkable. Mitch might have known about her affair, and this crash could be his doing. Nick picked up on her distress immediately. During his interrogation of Sienna, he pressed her hard about her friendship with Noah. Her defensiveness only made things worse. "I'm a married woman, Nick," Sienna snapped, avoiding his gaze. "You think I'd risk everything for a fling with your son?" But her trembling voice and flushed cheeks betrayed her guilt. Nick saw right through her denial. And when he brought up Mitch's name, and the whispers that Mitch might actually be Matt Clark, Sienna's face went pale. The ghost from Nick's past. Matt Clark's name sent a chill down Nick's spine. Decades ago, Matt had been the ultimate villain. A manipulator who framed Nick for rape, nearly destroyed Sharon's life, and later returned from the dead under different guises to torment them both. If Mitch Bacall was truly Matt Clark, it meant that a man Nick thought he'd buried long ago had risen from the ashes with a new face and a renewed thirst for revenge. Now, everything made sense. Mitch's sudden appearance in Los Angeles, his marriage to the enigmatic Sienna, his involvement with the Shadow Room, and his subtle interest in the Newman family. Nick began to piece together a horrifying theory. Mitch had found out about Sienna's affair with Noah and saw the perfect opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Punish his wife for her betrayal and take revenge on Nick by targeting his son. Sienna's guilt and fear. Sienna's world was collapsing. Every time she looked at Mitch, she saw flashes of the man she'd married. Charming, sophisticated, worldly. But beneath that veneer, She could feel the sinister energy pulsing beneath his surface. His questions became sharper, his tone colder. "You were close to Noah, weren't you?" Mitch would ask, his voice deceptively calm. "You seemed awfully upset about the accident. Almost like you had something to do with it." Sienna tried to hold her ground, but her husband's mind games chipped away at her sanity. He'd show up at the hospital just to mention Noah's condition, as if savoring every painful update. "He might not make it," Mitch would whisper, almost with a smirk. "Tragic, isn't it? You didn't really know him that well anyway." Was that guilt in his voice? Or satisfaction? Sienna couldn't tell anymore. She began to wonder if Mitch had tampered with Noah's car himself, or had one of his shady associates do it. After all, Mitch had the resources, the brains, and the motive. And if he was Matt Clark, he certainly had the heartless determination to make sure his enemies suffered. Nick's fury and Sharon's heartbreak. Back in Genoa City, Sharon was barely holding it together. The sight of her son lying unconscious in the hospital bed brought back every traumatic memory of Cassie's death. She couldn't lose another child, not to some twisted act of revenge. Nick's anger burned like wildfire. He was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant confronting Mitch head-on. "He's not Mitch Bacall," Nick muttered. "He's Matt Clark, and he's not going to destroy my family again." He vowed to protect Sharon, Noah, and everyone else he loved, but he knew Matt was always one step ahead. Noah wakes up. Then came the moment no one expected. Noah opened his eyes. Sharon was by his bedside when she felt his hand move. "Mom," he croaked weakly, his voice barely audible. It was the most beautiful word she'd ever heard. Tears streamed down her face as she called for the doctor. When Noah asked what happened, Sharon urged him not to push himself, but the questions wouldn't stop. Was it an accident?" he asked, his brow furrowing as fragments of memory flickered in his mind. Headlights in the rearview mirror, a sudden jolt, the sound of tires screeching. Someone had been following him that night. He was sure of it. Holden and Claire's complicated involvement. Meanwhile, Claire and Holden found themselves caught in the periphery of the chaos. Over breakfast with Nikki and Victoria, Claire admitted she was feeling more confused than ever. About her future, her family, and her own tangled heart. But when Holden appeared, her mood lightened. Their connection deepened during this trip, and she realized that life was too short for regrets. Before leaving town, Claire wanted to stop by the shadow room to thank Sienna. That's when she met Mitch. The moment Mitch and Holden laid eyes on each other, the air grew tense. There was history there, unspoken and bitter. Claire sensed that whatever happened between Mitch and Audra in the past wasn't something anyone wanted to revisit. As they left, Mitch turned to Sienna with a cold glare. "You seem awfully nervous around that girl," he said softly. "It's not like you were best friends or anything. Why all the guilt?" Sienna stammered, insisting she was just tired, but his eyes told her he didn't believe a word. Nick confronts Mitch. Later that night, Nick showed up at the shadow room unannounced. He wanted answers. Mitch greeted him with that same polished smirk, playing the part of the innocent businessman. "Nick," Mitch said smoothly, "I heard about your son. Terrible accident." "Cut the act," Nick shot back. "I know who you are, Matt. I don't care what name you're hiding behind now." For a moment Mitch's mask slipped, just a flicker of anger before the smile returned. "I think you've been watching too many crime dramas," he sneered. "I'm not this Matt Clark you keep raving about." But Nick wasn't convinced. "You hurt my son," he said, stepping closer. "And I'm going to prove it." The truth closing in. Behind the scenes, Victoria and Victor began investigating Mitch's background. What they found was alarming: falsified records, shell companies, and an erased history that screamed identity cover-up. The walls were closing in. Sienna, terrified and guilt-ridden, finally reached her breaking point. She went to Sharon in tears, confessing that she and Noah had been involved, but she swore she never meant for anyone to get hurt. "Mitch knows," she whispered. "He always knows. And if he really is Matt Clark, then God help us all." Sharon's expression hardened. "Then we end this once and for all." Noah's memory returns. Days later, as Noah recovered, pieces of the crash began to come back. "There was a car," he said quietly to his mother. "Black SUV. followed me from the club. The lights flashed once. Then it rammed me. Nick's worst fears were confirmed. Mitch hadn't just been toying with them. He had tried to kill Noah. The calm before the next storm. Back at the shadow room, Mitch poured himself a drink, smirking as he gazed out over the Ellis skyline. "Some people never learn," he murmured. "You hurt me, you pay the price." Unbeknownst to him, Nick was already on his way, with proof, with rage, and with years of pent-up fury. Sienna, trembling in the corner of the room, finally realized what she had done, and what she was dealing with. Mitch Bacall wasn't just her husband. He was a monster wearing a new face. As Noah slowly regained strength and memories, the question hung in the air like a ticking bomb. Would Mitch strike again before his secrets were exposed? Because in Genoa City and beyond, one thing's for certain. When Matt Clark returns, nobody is safe. And this time his revenge runs deeper than anyone could ever imagine. Noah Newman's awakening should have been a moment of pure relief. A miracle after weeks of fear and uncertainty. But instead, it was the spark that set off an even bigger storm. The truth about the canyon crash was only beginning to emerge, and every revelation pointed closer and closer to Mitch Bacall, or rather, to the man once known as Matt Clark. The tension builds. Nick's growing obsession. Nick Newman couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his son's mangled car, the wreckage glinting under the flashing red lights of emergency vehicles. He saw Sharon's face streaked with tears, Sienna's pale trembling lips, and Mitch's too perfect calm. Nick knew that look, the arrogance of a man who thought he'd won. It was the same look Matt Clark wore the last time Nick saw him all those years ago. Nick's gut screamed that Mitch Bacall wasn't just a new face in town. He was a ghost from his past, the very one who had almost destroyed his life and Sharon's. Mitch might have changed his name, his voice, and even his face, but Nick could still recognize that cold, calculating cruelty underneath. So Nick made it his mission to unmask him. He called in favors, hired private investigators, and sent his father Victor Newman a confidential report outlining every inconsistency in Mitch's history, the falsified documents, the vanished records from his supposed European ventures, and the strange timeline gaps that didn't add up. Victor's response was immediate and chillingly precise. "Handle it quietly, Nicholas. If Clark is truly alive, we'll finish this on Newman terms." Sharon's uneasy calm. While Nick prepared for war, Sharon was walking on emotional eggshells. Watching Noah recover stirred something raw inside her. He was fragile, not just physically but emotionally. He didn't want to talk about the crash or the strange car that had tailed him. The trauma was too fresh. But Sharon knew her son. Behind those tired eyes, Noah was holding back. "Honey," she whispered one afternoon as he stared out the hospital window. "If there's something you remember, something you're afraid to say, you can tell me." Noah hesitated, his fingers tightening around the blanket. "Mom, I think it wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "Someone ran me off the road." The words hit Sharon like a bullet. Her breath caught and for a moment she couldn't speak. When she finally did, her voice trembled. "Who?" "I don't know," Noah whispered, his memory foggy. "It was dark, but I think I saw a man. Just before the crash he looked right at me, like he wanted me to see him." That was all Sharon needed to hear. Her fear transformed into fire. The idea that someone had deliberately tried to kill her son, and possibly because of an affair, was unbearable. And if that man was Matt Clark, she would make sure he didn't get away this time. Sienna's nightmare. Across town, Sienna Bacall was falling apart. The more she tried to act normal around her husband, the harder it became. Mitch's every glance, every comment, every subtle dig was like a knife twisting deeper into her guilt. He had started leaving the television on the news channel deliberately, so that the latest updates on Noah's recovery played in the background. "Looks like your little friend's awake," Mitch said one morning as he sipped his coffee. "That's good, isn't it? Maybe now the police can find whoever did this to him." The way he said it, so casually yet so tauntingly, made Sienna's stomach churn. She couldn't even look him in the eye. At night she barely slept. Every sound, every creak of the house, every vibration from her phone, sent her into a panic. She'd begun drafting an email to Nick more than once, wanting to confess everything. The affair, the guilt, the fear that Mitch was behind the crash. But every time she tried, she imagined what Mitch might do if he found out. She'd seen his temper before, the sudden flashes of violence, the quiet threats disguised as jokes. "If you ever lie to me," he once said, smiling as he poured her wine, "you'd better hope I never find out, because when I do, I don't forgive." And now she was sure he knew. The Shadow Room, where secrets bleed. The Shadow Room, Sienna and Mitch's elite nightclub, was supposed to be their success story, but now it was a crime scene dressed in glamour. Investigators had started questioning staff. Rumors spread quickly that Noah had argued with someone before leaving, that he seemed upset, that he mentioned a woman. Nick decided to visit personally, under the pretext of checking in. Mitch welcomed him with open arms, that same snake-like grin plastered across his face. "Nicholas," Mitch said, gesturing toward the bar, "you didn't have to come all this way. I sent flowers to the hospital. How's the boy?" Nick's jaw tightened. "He's strong. He'll pull through." "Good," Mitch replied smoothly, sipping his drink. "You know, accidents like that, they make people reevaluate things. Relationships. Choices. It's a shame when the innocent get caught in the middle." Nick leaned closer. "You sound like a man who knows something." Mitch's smirk didn't falter. "I know life can be cruel, Nicholas. People cheat. People lie. And sometimes, karma does the dirty work for you." Nick's hand clenched into a fist, but he held himself back. Mitch wanted a reaction. He wanted control. But this time Nick wasn't going to play his game. As Nick left the club, he noticed Sienna watching from the upstairs balcony, her face pale as death. Their eyes met briefly, and in that split second Nick knew she was terrified. The truth starts to leak. In the days that followed, Noah's memory slowly returned in fragments. A black SUV. Headlights flashing once. A narrow bend. Then impact. He also remembered hearing a voice before the crash. Faint, almost like an echo. "You shouldn't have touched what's mine." It was enough to send shivers through Sharon and Nick. Nick began coordinating with Chance Chancellor, who agreed to look into the case unofficially. Chance found surveillance footage from a nearby gas station that showed a black SUV following Noah's car minutes before the crash, the same make and model that Mitch Bacall owned. That was the smoking gun Nick needed. Claire and Holden, the Los Angeles connection. Meanwhile, Claire and Holden's Los Angeles detour had taken an unexpected turn. After leaving the Shadow Room, Claire couldn't stop thinking about Mitch's reaction to Noah's name. There had been something unsettling in his eyes, something familiar, as if he carried a darkness she'd seen before. Holden tried to calm her nerves, but Claire's instincts were sharp. "He's hiding something," she said. "I can feel it." Holden sighed. "Everyone in that world is hiding something, Claire. Especially people like Mitch and Sienna. But digging deeper isn't going to help." "Maybe not," she replied. "But secrets always come out." When they returned to Genoa City, Claire's curiosity followed her home. She brought up Mitch's name during a conversation with Victoria, who immediately recognized it from Nick's recent rants. The pieces began to align, and suddenly, everyone realized this wasn't just a coincidence. It was personal. Mitch's mask slips. One evening, as Sienna stood on the balcony of their home, Mitch approached her quietly, his voice low and icy. "You've been distracted lately," he said. "Ever since that boy woke up. Something on your mind." Sienna swallowed hard. "I'm just worried, that's all. The police are still investigating. It's unsettling." "Unsettling?" he repeated, stepping closer until she could feel his breath on her neck. "You know what's unsettling? Betrayal." Sienna froze. "When someone you love lies to you," Mitch continued, his tone deceptively calm, "you start wondering if they ever really knew you at all. You start to think maybe they deserve whatever happens next." Her heart raced. "Mitch, what are you saying?" He smiled faintly, turning away. "Just a thought." When he left the room, Sienna collapsed into a chair, shaking uncontrollably. There was no more doubt in her mind. Mitch had done it. Victor's shadow. Back in Genoa City, Victor Newman began moving pieces behind the scenes. He had men digging into Mitch's aliases, tracing offshore accounts, and following paper trails that led to shell corporations tied to London and Europe, all connected to a Matthew C. Holdings. When Victor received the full report, his expression darkened. The fingerprints matched old Matt Clark records. The DNA cross-reference from a glass Mitch had left at the shadow room sealed it. That son of a bitch is alive, Victor muttered. And he's after my family again. Victor made one call. Nicholas, he said coldly. It's confirmed. He's Clark. You take care of Sharon and the boy. I'll take care of him. Noah's recovery and his rage. Noah's physical strength returned faster than anyone expected, but emotionally he was unraveling. He couldn't shake the feeling that his affair with Sienna had triggered the crash. The guilt weighed heavily on him. I shouldn't have gone near her, he confessed to Sharon one afternoon. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't even know she was married at first. Sharon stroked his hair gently. You made a mistake. But the person responsible is the one who hurt you, not you.